Okay, just 2 minutes. We will start the video recording. Yes, yes. Yeah, we can start that. Okay, we will start now. Greetings and good evening. On behalf of the organizing units, Computer Society of India, IEEE Computer Society, and ACM, I have great pleasure in extending a warm welcome to our today's eminent speaker, Dr. Prashanth, my colleagues from organizing units, and all the delegates who have joined the webinar on empowering businesses for analytics and AI with quality data through the Google Meet meeting link and those watching the YouTube streaming. Data has become the new oil and it is the most valuable asset which enables the growth of an organization and sometimes even determines the basic survival itself. The data economy is increasingly adopted worldwide in every industry as data-driven organizations have already demonstrated improved business performances. Every company today is looking at leveraging data, analytics, and artificial intelligence for improved business performance. But most organizations are impaired with poor quality data that is adversely affecting their analytics and AI solutions and indirectly their decisions. In fact, recent studies have found that just 3% of the data in enterprise meets the quality standards, 27% of the data in the companies is flawed, and poor quality impacts up to 12% of the revenues. In this presentation, Dr. Prashanth will discuss the most common issues of data quality degradation and give prescriptive recommendations for remediating and sustaining data quality based on his DARS framework. The DARS stands for Define, Analyze, Realize, and Sustain. This presentation is based on his recent book, Data Quality, Empowering Businesses with the Analytics and Artificial Intelligence, published by Wiley. Dr. Prashanth is the founder of DVP Institute, a data analytics consulting, research and education firm based at Calgary, Canada. He is an author, keynote speaker, board member, and professor of data analytics. Dr. Prashanth has advised over 80 organizations, including P&G, GE, Shell, Apple, FedEx, and McDonald's. Most of them are the Fortune 500 companies. He is the author of 3 books: Data for Business Performance, Analytics Best Practices, and the latest one, Data Quality, and writes regularly on data, analytics, and machine learning in Forbes and CFO University. He serves on the editorial board of MIT CDDIQ Symposium and is an advisory board member of BGV Ventures, GriaSoft, EvolServe, and Astral Insights. So most of them are spread across the world. Apart from his consulting and advisory pursuits, Dr. Prashanth has trained over 3,500 professionals worldwide in data and analytics. He is also an adjunct professor of data and analytics at IEEE Business School, situated in Madrid, Spain, and CDO magazine included him in the top 75 global academic data leaders in the year 2022. In addition, CIO Look listed Dr. Prashanth as the 10 most influential leaders in technology to follow in 2023. Dr. Prashanth holds a PhD from ESC Lilly from France and MBA from Kellogg School of Management, USA, and MS from IIIT Bangalore, and ICD designation from the Institute of Corporate Directors, based at Canada. He lives between Calgary in Canada, Madrid, Spain, and San Francisco with his wife, 2 children, and a high-energy golden doodle dog. So he is very fond of dog, and then I think it must be keeping him quite busy every day. Outside work, he loves juggling, golf, and cricket. With this brief welcome note and introduction of today's topic and the speaker, Dr. Prashanth, I invite him to take over and enlighten us on the subject data quality. Over to Dr. Prashanth, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mohan, for the introduction. I will be sharing my slides. Give me 1 second. Mohan, can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much, Mr. Mohan and the whole team for the warm introduction and the warm welcome as well. And today's presentation is going to be on the book which I wrote recently, or which I published recently, which is on data quality. So thanks again for the opportunities to share my thoughts. And this is what Mohan just said. I'll not go over this slide once again. So before we get into the topic, a few expectations or a request from you. The first one is stay focused on the topic. Data quality overall is a very broad topic. It's pretty much contextual. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the location. What data quality might be for one company might not be the same standards or levels for a different company. So even in this group, I'm expecting I believe the expectations of data quality from people might be very varied. So what I would request is stay focused on the topic, stay focused at the conceptual level, rather than focusing too much on technical aspects or some idiosyncrasies which might be related to your organizations and all. Number 2, participate That means be open and curious. So that means asking questions at any time. You can put your questions in the chat box. I see that quite a few people have already asked questions. Thank you very much for that. And but if you still have questions at any point in time, put your questions in the chat box. So just a heads up. So I am calling from, or I'm joining this call from Canada. So it's the morning 5:30 here on a Saturday. So I didn't have my coffee. So I get my energy from you. So if you're more engaged you are in this presentation, the more energized I get. So the more you give, the more you get from me. So you are my Red Bull. You are my coffee for the day. So be active, participate, be open, curious, questions anytime. Cell phones, use your judgment. So today we are talking about an attention deficit. They say that an average person can just spend 8 seconds focusing on a particular topic. So most of us, because of the digital technology, especially the cell phone, we are constrained with paying attention. So I would request people to either mute your phones, or if need, or if possible, even switch off your cell phones for the next 1 hour or so. So I'm committed to this. So it would be great if you are also committed to this presentation, because overall, I'm here to learn as well. Just like you are here to learn, I'm here to learn from you what experiences you have on data quality, what challenges you have, and so that we can learn together on this particular topic. But at the same time, if you think that, hey, my wife is going to post a picture in Instagram, I have to like it, or else I might be in trouble. So I don't want to be your villain on the weekend. So go feel free, use your judgment and turn off your phone and like it. But cell phone, I would say use your judgmental skills. And lastly, I would request all of you to mute your microphone. There might be some disturbance. There might be somebody talking in your room. There might be some traffic. There might be somebody honking. Please turn off your microphone so that it's not disturbing others. So I'm assuming that you all turned off your microphone. So let's get into the topic. So overall, data quality is a kind of a dry and not a very interesting topic. So it's kind of boring for many people when we talk about data quality. When I talk to people from the business, they generally think that it's mostly the IT or the nerds who talk about data quality or even data. So I want to make this presentation more interesting, more engaging. So what I have done is I've broken down this whole kind of presentation, which is about 1 hour or so, into 3 major topics. The first, we'll talk about what data and what data quality is all about. There are varied definitions of data. There is varied expectations about the data quality as well. So let's all come to a common understanding about what data and what data quality is all about. Then there are many myths associated with data quality. These myths are creating a lot of misconceptions in the industry about the level of data quality needed. So there are many myths, but I have picked up 3 common myths which I frequently run into while consulting for various companies. So I'll talk about those 3 myths. And lastly, we'll talk about the realizing the data quality. What can companies do to improve the data levels of data quality in their organization? So let's go first to the definition of data and data quality. So when we talk about data, so it's not just one attribute we are talking about. It is a set of fields or attributes with values in a specific format. For example, if you see the below case of a purchase order, it has got a bunch of attributes. In this case, it is 6, and it has got attributes of varying definitions or varying formats. If you look at item description, it's a text. If you look at quantity, it's a number. But overall, each of the fields has values, and each of the values come in a specific format. So why am I talking this? The first one is when we talk about data, we are not talking about an individual attribute. We are talking about a series of attributes which make a data, whether it's purchase order, whether it's a contract, whether it's an invoice or remittance advice, and many other examples. So it's all about a set of fields with values in a specific format. So when we talk about business, it's not just one type of data that really matters. So when I go to the business and when I ask my clients, what type of data are you thinking about improving? they generally talk about the data which they are managing, which is like the purchase orders or the sales orders, remittance advisors, contracts, inspection reports, etc. But broadly in the business world, there are four major types of data. Oh my gosh, what is this, Prashanth? We have never heard about this. We always thought that it's the data the company manages internally. So you are talking about four types of data which a company talks about. Yes, today we are talking about what is known as the data flywheel. That means data is going to propel the business performance. And to enable the data flywheel, these are the four types of data that companies can potentially leverage. Let's take the first one, zero-party data. This is all the data which the company can use to get the details about their potential partners. It could be the prospects, who could be potentially the customers later on. It could be the vendors or companies who could be their vendors later on. It could be the agents who can be their potential agents later on when they are approved. So zero-party data, which has got low business impact, and it is got of low volume because it is not about the real relationship or about the data about the counterparty they have, but they all could become potential partners going forward. So that's known as zero-party data. So I'll just give an example. So I live in Calgary in Canada, and a few months back, so there is an organization called the Calgary Petroleum Club. So I was thinking of becoming a member of this organization just to grow my business. So there was a Facebook post which they said about the Calgary Petroleum Club and all those details. So I put a comment in Facebook and I asked them, hey, are you guys are you enrolling new members now? So within half an hour, I got a phone call saying that, hey, Prashanth, I see that you have put something in Facebook about asking for membership. Yes, we are we are taking new members. Would you be interested to discuss more? So I said, right now I'm traveling, but potentially after I come back, I might be interested to talk about this. So I said, sure. So after I came back, after 3 weeks, they reached out to me. So I'm not their customer, but they had all the details about me, about what's my business, my phone number, my email address, so on and so forth, so that they can reach out to me. But that data they have about me is not the real data. I might become their customers or I might not become their customers. But who knows? They might contact me next year. And again, I'll start asking me whether I want to become their customer. The second type of data is the first-party data, which is the most commonly used data. So when we talk about data quality, people often talk about the first-party data because this data has high business impact because it hits their GL. It is used in the financial reporting. It could be the sales order data. It could be the deliveries. It could be the shipments, invoices, and all those data. So this is the first-party data, which is under the influence and control of the company. But often the data size is very small when we talk about the first-party data. It has got high impact, no doubt, but the size itself is very small. The other type of data which the companies can leverage, which not many companies are doing, is the second-party data. This is the data about their partners, which they can potentially leverage and improve their business performance. For instance, let's take, we have an oil and gas company, which has given a contract for let's say, oil and gas company like Shell, which has given a contract to Schlumberger to do some oil exploration. So this contract which Schlumberger has on Shell is the data about Shell's business. So Shell can potentially leverage the data which Schlumberger has on this particular project and use it to improve the business performance. So it's not just about oil and gas companies, insurance companies. So you want to get a life insurance, and most of the time when you call an agent, this agent from an insurance company is not an employee of that insurance company. He is looking for many other insurance products from many other companies and giving you the best insurance product. So these are agents, but they have all the data about your company, which most of the companies are not using it. So this data is the second-party data. The third type of data is known as the third-party data, which is commonly called as the data products. For instance, you have, let's take an example of a retail company. You have a strong hypothesis which says that my retail sales is dependent on weather. Like in Canada, for example, which is generally a cold country, so weather plays a big role in the performance of the retail stores. So you want to know, say tomorrow if it is snowing, can I introduce some discounts and try to attract more people to the store, even though the weather is really bad? So this weather data, normally companies don't capture it because it's not part of their standard business. But at the same time, there are many third-party companies which are specializing in third-party data. For example, if you see IBM, a few years back, they had acquired this company called weather.com for $4 billion because they want to sell that data product, which is on the weather data, to all the retail stores and for the CPG companies. So third-party data is about the data which is not designed for you, which is not built for you, but you can easily buy it and integrate to your first-party data, zero-party, or even second-party data, and use those complete data or the data flywheel for improved business performance. So overall, why did I put this slide? So when we talk about data, often people talk about the first-party data, which is true, no harm in that. But they typically ignore the other types of data which is at their disposal, especially the second-party data, which is actually your data. Somebody is taking it, but you are completely ignoring that aspect of data, which you can use it and be a better business. So when we look at data, one question or one thought element for you, or key takeaway for you is how much of the other types of data, zero-party, second-party, and third-party data, which you are using, especially for data analytics, so that you can be a better organization. So data quality. So that brings us to the next topic about how do we improve data quality. But what exactly is data quality, Prashanth? We have heard about this data quality many times. So broadly, you can say data quality is the element which you can use to improve your business on three major aspects. Number one, operations. Number two, compliance. Number three, analytics. It's often the operations and compliance activities which drive the analytics. Rarely in the business you see an organization capturing the data for analytics. For instance, when you look at India, for instance, a few years back, because of all the money laundering and terrorism activities, the bank started this process called KYC, Know Your Customer. Where did this origination of KYC come from? It started from a compliance activity because the government pushed the banks to capture those details. But today, the same activity, KYC, or the data that is used for KYC is also used for analytics. You must be getting tons of mails about banks saying that, hey, we want to give you a loan. We want to talk about this insurance product, credit card, and so on. So often when we talk about business, the origination of data typically happens for compliance and operational purposes, and the output for that is analytics. Once you have a critical amount of data that has been captured from operations and compliance, you can start looking at patterns, start deriving insights from the data, and use it to make better decisions. So overall, when we talk about data quality, I said in my book, which is the data quality one by Wiley, I said data is considered to be of high quality if they're fit for use for three main reasons. Number one, operations, compliance, and the last one is analytics. But data quality is a proactive activity. It's not like a reactive thing. Like you do it, or once you realize, oh, my quality levels are bad, let me go and fix it. So research says that in an average enterprise, the data quality degrades by 2 to 7% every year. That means you need to be conscious about it. You need to be proactive, and you need to go forward and see what you can do to improve the data quality. Because if you just capture and save it, the data quality degrades, and this number is pretty high. So to look at the data quality levels pertaining to those three purposes, which is operations, compliance, and decision-making, there are different data quality dimensions which you can use. So in my book, I talk about 12 key data quality dimensions. But in the interest of time, I don't want to go over all the 12 elements. I'll pick an example and talk about these two common things, which is accuracy and correctness, and talk about with a live example or real example, which I did for one of Canada's biggest telecom companies. So I was hired as a consultant by this telecom company, and along with me there was a Big Four consulting company as well, which was doing a bigger project on improving data quality. So this company came to us. Since I was a consultant for this company, I was pretty much considered as an internal employee, whereas a consulting company was really treated as an external entity. So they came to us and said that, hey, the customer, we are looking at customer 360 now, and the customer data is of very bad quality. So this is almost like a $16 billion company. Oh my gosh, this looks very bad. Customer data is very bad quality. How did we run the business for so many years? So they said, what are you talking about? So they said 99.7%. Remember this number, 99.7 of the customer data is of bad quality. Oh my gosh, this is a huge number. So tell me more about it. What do you mean by bad quality? What customer data are you talking about? So we discussed in slide 1 that customer data is a bunch of attributes. Which attribute are you talking about? They said it's about the address. Okay, so what? So what is the impact of bad address data? That means the customers are not getting invoices on time. All the bills are not going to them. So that means it is affecting our collection, revenue recognitions, and all those things affecting the cash flow. Okay, good. So let's look at what address is all about. So you say the address is impacting our cash flow. So, but most of these customers have signed up for email invoices. People move. So people move from one city to another, from one locality to another, people move. So you can't expect people to be there all the time. And these days, many of those people have signed up for email invoices, not a physical paper invoice. So we have to look at those kind of people who have signed up for physical invoices if you think the address is wrong. Then said, oh my gosh, we didn't know this. Okay, let's look at those people who have signed up for email for physical addresses. So the number dramatically dropped from 99.7% to 2%. Okay, so 2% still, when we have 6 million customers, that's still bad. So let's still look at those 2% of the customers who have bad address data. So let's get into the details. So we started looking at the address data for this 2% of the customers. So when we looked at this address data, most of the address data were kind of were codified using short forms. For example, in Canada, we use, instead of street, they put it as ST. Instead of drive, they put it as DR. So instead of boulevard, they put it as BVLD. So which is all technically, it's incorrect, but everybody gets it. So when you put street, the postman gets it that ST means street. So, okay, but the thing that really matters is the zip code or the postal code. So we have to look at the postal code issues and see whether that's really wrong or not. So from 2%, the postal code issues came down to 0.03%. So just in a matter of asking the right questions, the data quality levels dropped from 99.7 to 2% to 0.03%. So how is it related to this slide, Prashanth? This slide is important because knowing the data quality dimensions helps you ask the right questions. Many people think that accuracy and correctness are the same, but actually they're not. Correctness is Boolean. It is yes or no, 0 or 1. Like a telephone number, for example, even if one number is a mistake there, the whole data record becomes useless. Whereas accuracy is a degree of correctness. Whether you call street as ST or a boulevard or a drive as DR, it's not a big deal. Ideally, we would have expected this to be called a street, but there could be many limitations. One of the limitations is about the system limitations. Many systems can't go after a particular defined length. So in that case, most of the businesses, they try to use short forms, and that could be the reason. So what I'm trying to say with this data quality dimensions is understanding the definitions helps you to know what data quality is all about and helps you ask the right questions and make a realistic assessment about where your data quality levels are. So is it really at 99.7%, or the real story is just 0.03%? Or it could be the other way around. Are you making a mountain out of a molehill, or a molehill out of a mountain? Can be addressed by understanding the data quality dimensions. So overall, when we talk about data or data quality, we have three main purposes, which we just discussed a few minutes back, which is operations, compliance, and analytics. So it's often the operations and compliance activities drive the analytics. And from analytics, you define insights. So Prashanth, what is the segregation? Why have you put this line between those two boxes? The reason being, when we talk about operations and compliance, they are defined and predictable. They are often tied to the business processes. For instance, when you talk about procurement, whether you are running procurement in Walmart or whether you're running procurement in JP Morgan Chase, the process is pretty much straight and defined. That's where most of these ERP products or CRM products, they are running these applications, or they sell this product to Shell, and tomorrow they go and sell it to, say, Vodafone, for example. The processes are pretty much defined and predictable. That's where the COTS product come into the picture, like SAP and Salesforce and all those applications. The data is often in native and proprietary format. So when I worked in SAP, there was actually a joke in SAP. They said that to work in SAP, you have to learn Japanese. Because the data is often in the native and proprietary format. And the focus is on business processes, especially the standard ones like procurement, HR, accounting, treasury, and all those things. But when we talk about analytics, the expectations completely changes. Broadly, analytics is all about asking questions. So if you don't have questions, you really don't have analytics projects happening in your companies. So when I talk to my clients, they say, hey, Prashanth, we want to do analytics projects. So I said, what are you thinking about? They said, we are thinking of hiring a Python developer. We are thinking of moving the data to the cloud and all those things. I said, that's good. That's all great intention. That's one of the things which you have to do. But the fundamental thing about analytics is asking questions. If you don't have the questions, practically there is no analytics. So when we talk about analytics, some of the characteristics are it's all hypothesis based. So most of you must have heard about Rumsfeld's matrix, which is the known, unknown, and so on and so forth. So it's all about hypothesis based. It's about it's about belief or a gut feeling which you have, which you think that the data can answer those insights. Often the data is not available. So the more questions which you have, or the more powerful questions you have, often the data might not be there because the data is typically captured for operations and compliance. Rarely you are having a situation where you need to use it for analytics. The data is needed in a structured format. When we talk about analytics models, whether you're talking about regression or time series and all those models, they are dependent on a structured format. Let me give you an example. So you have a question which says, how much money we are going to make in 2024? So this question says how much, or ask how much money. So the data type is going to be numeric. So if I'm going to use a numeric data type, so that means the corresponding predictive analytics model, or the one of the corresponding predictive analytics model, which could be linear regression, is to be used. But on the other hand, let's say my question is, will I make a profit in 2024? The answer to that is going to be categorical. Yes or no, profit or loss. So for that, I cannot use linear regression. Instead, I'll be using logistic regression. So the bottom line is that if you are talking about analytics, data type really matters a lot. You cannot use much of unstructured data, which is typically 80 to 90% of the data in a company is unstructured. You need to transform the data from an unstructured format to a structured format so that you can use the right data science model and derive insights. And lastly, the focus is on insights. Okay, Prashanth, I get this. Do you have an example to talk about how it works? So let's take a simple case of a retail company. As I said earlier, analytics is all about asking questions. Let's say you are a data scientist in this retail company, and the first question which you have based on the data which you have collected, let's say, I want to know the sales by SKU or the product. Okay, I can get this information, no problem. I'll go to all my sales data and I say for by product, these are all the sales which we made. I had 20,000 SKUs in my network or in my database. Out of this 20,000 SKUs, this is all the money each of the SKUs made or products made. Got it. This is a great insight which I didn't know before. Now I got it. Now I'm going to ask a little bit of a tougher question. My hypothesis says that sales is dependent on location. Let's say that, for instance, you are in India and you say in Uttar Pradesh, the sales is more than in Kerala. That's a hypothesis. You want to validate that whether it's really true, or are you making more money in Kerala compared to Uttar Pradesh? So you want to get this data based on location. You look at the data, there's a good chance that you are capturing the store details or the store ID in your database, and you can get those information from the available data. A tougher question, but fortunately, I had the data. Remember, this is a retail company. Now I have one more question. Is the sales dependent on weather? Do you think in summer, people buy my products more compared to winter? Oh, that's a great question. But do I have data for this? Let me go and check. Oh my gosh, there is a problem here. I don't have the data because you typically don't capture the weather data as part of your operations and compliance. So in this case, you had a great question or a great hypothesis which says that your sales is dependent on the weather, but sadly or unfortunately, you don't have this data, which is about the weather. So this is the problem with analytics. So when we talk about data quality in terms of analytics, at some point in time, the data just gives up. So the tougher questions you have, the more predictive questions you have, the prescriptive or the what if analysis kind of questions you have, at some point in time, the data will just give up. So the data quality for operations and compliance is much more defined and predictable and relatively easy compared to data quality for analytics. So for data quality for analytics, it is very subjective. It is fluid in nature. So you can't put the same standards for data quality for operations and compliance than you have for analytics. So with this, there's a lot of benefits of doing analytics in your company. A lot of research has been done. MIT says that if you do data analytics, you are going to be 26% more profitable than your peers. McKinsey did a study, and Forrester, Boston Consulting Groups, Yahoo Finance. If you look at the top 5 companies in the world in terms of market capitalization today, they are all like the data-centric companies, popularly known as FAANG, FAAMG, which is Facebook or Meta now, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, and Google or Amazon, whatever, FAAMG. So if you look at the top 5 companies, they're all like digital companies. The top 10 companies which are more innovative in the world, according to Boston Consulting Groups, they're all the data-centric companies. So many companies might say, oh, all these companies are using data and making more money and improving their business performance. Let's also jump into this. But at the same time, there's a lot of challenges as well. Gartner did a study and they say that majority of the analytics projects fail. McKinsey did a study and they found that, I'm talking about bullet point number 4, 2 hours in a day, people are just looking for the right data. They're searching for the right data. And IBM and Carnegie Mellon, I'm talking about the penultimate point here, they did a study and they found that 90% of the data in a company is never used for business reasons. That means they are all like the dark data. So, and Forrester did a similar study and they found that it is 73%. So almost like 80% of the data that is captured in a company is never used. And today we are in the ESG world, which stands for environmental, social, and governance. And just storing and processing data causes a huge carbon footprint of approximately 200 kgs for every 100 GB of data that is processed. In India, there's one of the common discussion is about pollution. So we think that pollution is actually coming from transportation, but the rate at which things are going, the data centers are going to be one of the most polluting entities going forward, assuming that the current technology on energy remains the same. But at the current rate, one of the biggest polluters in the world is going to be the data centers. But why does data quality degrade? Why do we have that rate of 2 to 7% of data quality degrades every year? Why does it happen? So there are many reasons for this. So in my book on data quality, I discussed 16 reasons why data quality degrades. In the interest of time, I'll pick the top 6 which are impacting data quality. The first one is manual errors. TDWI, which stands for the Data Warehousing Institute, which is based in US, they did a study and they said that 76% of the reasons is because of manual entry. It could be because lack of training, people don't know what to enter, people are using text fields, and all those reasons. And that's because of manual manual errors. Number two is organization silos. So, believe it or not, in almost every company, there are silos. So we talk about an enterprise-wide. When we talk about Walmart, we think it's one company, but inside the company there are multiple sub-companies. So when I was working for SAP, I was part of SAP India. So when I went to SAP Canada, when I was transferred to SAP Canada, I used to see that there were so many organization silos and resulting in office politics and so on and all those things. So it's about silos make a big difference when it comes to data quality. Let's take a simple example of inventory management and marketing versus finance. Marketing wants to keep the inventory levels very high, and they might have a very high expectations for safety stock. The finance says, oh my gosh, that doesn't work, because if you keep the safety stock very high or keep the inventory levels very high, we'll be incurring a lot of inventory carrying costs. So our definition of data quality is very different. We want to maintain low levels of data quality. Okay, so marketing has expectations about maintaining high levels of data, high levels of inventory, and when the number goes down, they say, oh, this number is not good and the data quality is bad. Another example is payment terms. Finance and procurement, that's another tension point in most companies. Procurement wants to keep the payment terms very low. Say, for example, as soon as a vendor delivers, they want to pay it because they want to maintain good relationship with the vendor. But finance will say that, hey, we can't pay it immediately. Let's make it as net 30 or net 60 or even net 90. Let's pay the vendors as late as possible because it's going to affect our cash flow. So the same payment term, finance looks at or the procurement looks at the finance payment term as a service element, whereas the finance looks at the same payment term and the same payment value as a cost element. So there is kind of a tensions, and that's resulting in organization silos between different companies. Number three is closely related to what I said, different ways of interpretation and consumption. Payment terms is one example. Number four is data integration. In most companies, the data is not static. It's not sitting in one system in one place. Data moves. For instance, you capture the data for procurement in your ERP, and you want to do spend analytics, where you have the procurement data, you have the shipping data, you want the invoicing data, and do a three-way match and all those things. So bring all those data into a kind of a canonical system, which could be a data warehouse, and start doing those analytics. So when you move the data from different systems to one common canonical system, which could be the data warehouse, the compliance to the metadata model is kind of lost. So when data integration happens, that is where the data quality also degrades, because there is no alignment to the metadata model. System upgrades, especially for custom development. In one project where I worked, the developer had used the telephone number as a validation for the tax code. So he said, let's take the first three numbers of the telephone and use it to validate and define the tax code. For instance, in Alberta, we don't pay the provincial tax. In rest of Canada, they pay the provincial tax, which is generally 8%. In Alberta, we just pay the GST, which is at the federal level. So he said, let's look at the phone numbers of the customer and derive whether they're from Alberta or not. So anywhere, if it starts with, for example, 587 or 403, that means this vendor is from Calgary. So there is no provincial tax for this vendor, which I need to calculate. So in one way, this works. He has used some logic and made it work. But what happens is when there is upgrades to the system, when there is the namespace that is not being taken care of during the upgrades by the vendor, so all this development thing gets lost, and that potentially affects your data quality levels as well. And lastly, poor database design, especially when you talk about custom development. Often it might not follow the normalization concepts. It might not follow the ACID rules and so on and all those, so on and so forth. So we talk about poor database design as well. So in my book, I talk about 16 reasons, but in the interest of time, I just want to talk about the 6 key reasons why data quality degrades. So let's now look at the popular myths associated with data quality. The first myth is data is a business asset. Oh my gosh, what are you talking, Prashanth? We we canceled our movie plans to come and listen to you. And Mohan also said about data as a business asset and it improves companies' performance and everything. And you are saying that's a myth. Hold on, I'll explain that, why I call it as a myth. Number two, many people think that you need 100% quality data for analytics. That's one more myth. The reality is not true. And finally, the thing that the data is valuable all the time. The value of the data changes depending on the context. So let's go over their myths one by one. The first myth is about the business asset. In fact, I've written a couple of articles related to this. One for my one of my clients, Seller Data, which is a company based in Menlo Park, about what real-time analytics is all about, where I explained this in more detail. And for in CFO.University, I wrote a blog about why data is missing from a balance sheet related to the first myth, which I just mentioned. But we'll go over these three myths quickly. The first one is data is a business asset. True, data is a business asset only if it is managed well. If it is not managed well, it can become a liability, which is very, very hard to dispose. What do you mean, Prashanth? Can you explain this? Sure. So data can be a liability on four main fronts. The first one is volume. Today, companies are capturing data left, right, and center. So good that you are capturing the record of all your activities, but just capturing the data and not using it results in more complexity, more cost. If you look at the IT expenses of most of the companies, we talk about cloud computing, we talk about outsourcing to low-cost countries and all those things. Why? To reduce cost. But still, on an average, the IT expenses or IT budget from most companies is growing at 3 to 5% every year. They are not able to contain the cost. And one of the reasons why they are not able to contain the cost is because of the high cost of data management. Number two, ESG, which is carbon footprint. So more data you capture, the more carbon footprint, more will be your carbon footprint. So what? What will happen if the carbon footprint is going up? Today, most of the investments that are happening in the industry is based on your ESG numbers, the ESG KPIs. So my wife works for a bank in Canada, and most of the criteria where she does this capital investment is based on the ESG numbers today, not just based on your growth or based on your cash flow. All those things are important, but these ESG numbers are also becoming very important on how lenders are giving money to your company. So if you are capturing data left, right, and center without thinking about how it is used, because somebody told you data is oil, data is blood, data is oxygen, you are not going very far, because those investors have got plan B or a different alternative to invest their money. They think that, oh, this company is taking care of the environment in a more friendlier way than this company, so I'm going to invest my $100 million into this company. So it's not just about at a ESG level. You can see what Sundar Pichai is talking about, the Google CEO. They are also looking at how to make data centers more efficient. Amazon is investing huge amounts of money into renewable energy. Why? To reduce the cost of data center and, of course, the carbon footprint. So the more data overall you capture, the more carbon footprint you will incur, and that can potentially affect your capital investments. Number three is risk. The more data you capture, you become more attractive for hackers. So as I said earlier, 90% of the data that is being captured today is dark data. Companies hardly use it. So when hackers look at your company, they just look at the whole data footprint. They don't care whether it's dark data or bright data. They just put their hands and take whatever they have. When hackers attacked Equifax had to fix their systems by spending $1.4 billion. So overall, the more data you capture, the more riskier it is for the business. And lastly, privacy. It might not be a big thing in India for now, but in the next couple of years, data privacy is going to be a big factor in most of the countries. Today, when I say today, it's 2021. They said just about 8% of the data-related projects were related to data footprint. And they say by 2025, 65% is going to be will be on data privacy. And why is it important? Let's take the example of Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica came into limelight because of data analytics. And it was the same data analytics that resulted in the company's collapse and ultimately the company's closure. So data is definitely an asset if you know how to use it. But if you don't know how to use it, it can become a huge liability for these four main reasons. So Prashanth, what should we do now to make the data into a business asset? The first thing is capture the data because you need it. Don't capture the data because somebody told cloud is cheap or data is blood. You went for a conference and somebody said the data is oxygen. That's all good. You can take all those things, but most importantly, capture the data because you need it for the three reasons which we discussed earlier, which is operations, compliance, and analytics. Number two, data should be processed. What does this mean? Most of the data which is being captured today is unstructured data. I call it as the TAVI data, which is text, audio, video, and images. So the good thing about this TAVI data or unstructured data is it can be digitized very easily. Suppose somebody writes something in a post-it, you can take a picture of it and you can keep it in your SharePoint or ECM. But the flip side of that unstructured data is it doesn't have the right data model. Querying it becomes very difficult. It has some basic metadata attributes, but it doesn't have a lot of information where you can query it. So, and it can also increase your dark data footprint. So when you want to transform your data into a business asset, try to minimize your unstructured data, try to have a plan to purge those unstructured data so that you can use it for your business purposes. So I was consulting for an oil pipeline company, which used to capture a lot of unstructured data on their pipeline inspection. Good, you're capturing all those information and you are taking a digital copy of it along with the paper copy and you're keeping it. But the digital copy, hardly people used it. And for the paper copy, they were spending almost like 2 million every year to manage it. So most of the expenses that is happening in a company is for unstructured data, your carbon footprint, your cost of data management, and so on. So data should be processed so that you can query it, you can use the right data science model and derive insights. So if you're just capturing the data, so that becomes data might ultimately become a liability. And lastly, data should be non-substitutable. What does this mean? One of the biggest competitors for data analytics is making decisions using insights from your intuition. And when do people use intuition? When do they use tribal knowledge? When the education levels are relatively low. So when the education levels are low, people don't use data analytics. People don't rely on science. They rely on the tribal knowledge. So improve the data literacy in your organization so that data becomes non-substitutable. So I wrote an article in Forbes on what can data be a liability for the business and my solutions and all those things. So you can read it later. But overall, data should move. You should try to look at the data as a transactional element. So Albert Einstein once said, nothing happens until things move. So we saw during COVID world, there was a lot of lockdowns and the economy got a big hit. Why? Because nothing happens until people move. And there's a lot of pressure from the politicians to remove the lockdowns and all those things, which we see that how movement affects growth and development. The second myth which I have is 100% data quality is needed. So when I go for my consulting projects, many of my clients say, hey, Prashanth, we need your help. Our data quality really sucks. And we need your help to get 100% data quality. So in one of the projects where I went, and when I was talking to a prospect, so this gentleman said, we need 100% data quality for analytics. So I said, it doesn't exist. He said, what do you mean it doesn't exist? So there's nothing called 100% data quality because data is fundamentally a record of an historical event and businesses change, businesses evolve because of mergers and acquisitions, divestitures, new product introduction, new regulations, COVID, monkeypox. The business is always in a state of flux. So you can't expect the business to be static or constant and expect 100% data quality. Because fundamentally, data is a record of a past event and business is always doing a catch-up about what is happening. So the reality of 100% quality data doesn't exist. Oh my gosh. Then what do we do, Prashanth? What is this 100%? So are you saying that we manage our business without data? Is 20% sufficient? Is 30% okay? Or is it 80% required? What do you think we should be aspiring for? What should be the level of data quality? So let's play a small game. So data quality is all about balancing cost and value. So I would have played this game if it was in a classroom session. I would have asked somebody to play this game with me. But again, since we are doing it in a virtual, so I will play this game with you as well, or I will answer this question, and you can keep the answers with you. Okay, my first question to you. What is this? You don't have to tell me. You don't have to unmute your microphone and tell me what it is. You can think about this answer in your mind. So you might be thinking, oh, it could be anything. It could be a building. It could be a car. It could be a picture of Rajnikant or whoever it is. So I have no idea, Prashanth, what it is. Or it could be a picture of your golden doodle dog, Prashanth. Okay, 0% accuracy. I have no idea what you are talking, Prashanth. Okay. I'll give you one more picture. Oh, this is slightly better than the first one. But Prashanth, it could be, I think it's an animal. It could be a puppy, or it could be a bear, or it could be a tiger. But it looks more like an animal. Okay, what's your level of accuracy? I would say it's 50%. Okay. I'll give you a third picture. What is this? Oh, this is still better, Prashanth, from the second one. This looks more like a dog. I would give it as 75% accuracy. I'm 75% certain that this is a dog. Okay. Now I'll give you the fourth picture. Oh, this is simple. This is a dog, 100% accurate. So what does this mean? So every time I was improving the accuracy from 0 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100, behind the scenes, I was improving the resolution. The first picture took about 7.3 KB of space. The last one took 143 KB. The third one took 16.3 and the second one 10.3. So let's compare the second and the third one. The second one was 50% accuracy with 10.3 KB of space or processing. And the third one, I improved the accuracy to 75%, 16.3 or 75, 80%. But to jump from 75 to 80, I had to pay 9 times the cost. So overall, if you can try to look for the picture number 4, which is often a unicorn in the business world, provided you are able to pay this money. And even if you are ready to pay this money, there is no guarantee that you will get picture number 4, because the use case for picture number 4 is very limited. There are very few use cases where you have to look for 100% data quality. Most of the time, 75, 80% of the data quality is good enough to run your business. Only a few use cases are a situation where life and death is involved. So many of the companies, for even some basic analytics, they are aspiring for picture number 4. They are trying to look at this unicorn, but in reality, it doesn't exist at all. So if you are a little bit realistic and say that 75% is good enough, that should be good for all your business purposes, whether you're talking about operations, compliance, or even analytics. So how do you get this picture number 3? And is it really true? Is it scientifically validated that 75, 80% is good enough? So this is a research done by many places where they say you can apply the 40-70 rule. What does this mean? Don't make any decisions if you have less than 40% of data, and don't wait for a situation where you are aspiring for more than 70% of the data. So if you are somewhere between 40 to 70%, that's good enough to run your analytics. So that's also research done at INC, which says 75% is all you need to run your business. And today we are not talking about big data. We are talking about right data. We are talking about quality data. Andrew Ng, who was a founder of Coursera, and later earlier he was in Google. He talks about the same thing these days. He talks about small data, not the big data. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. So look at the 40-70 rule, because most of the use cases in the business are good enough if you have 75% quality data. the achieving that 100% quality data in most of the times might be extremely difficult, or even if it is there, the use cases for that are very, very, very limited. The last one is data is valuable all the time. The reality is the data value depends on the type of data which you have and the stage in the data lifecycle, DLC, where you are associated. So if you look at the data type, broadly, you can look at the data into three major types. One is, of course, you can look at it in many views, structured, unstructured, and all those things. But I look at the data into three major views. Number one, reference data, which is all about categories like your plans and your chart of accounts. Master data, which is all about your entities like your customers, products, items, and transactional data, which is a function of time like your orders and invoices. So transactional data is very contextual in nature. That's where you have the highest value. I was working for a transportation company and they said, hey, Prashanth, we need your help with customer 360. I said, good. How many customers do you have? They said, we have 500,000 or 5 lakhs. In Canada, we use 500,000 and millions and all, but in India, we use lakhs and crores. So I'll say 5 lakhs. Okay, so that's a huge number. So you want to improve the data quality of this 5 lakh customers? They said, sure, yes. But tell me, in the last 18 months, how many customers did you do business with? They looked at the data and they said it's 1,700. Oh my gosh. So you had 5 lakh customers, but you actually did business with just 1,700 of them. So that means there's no point in talking about the remaining ones. Let's focus first on the 1,700 because this is where you had the transactions with them. So transactions are basically the acid test, or I call it as a linchpin for data quality or business performance, because the transaction data have got a financial value. Any transactions you take, for instance, you go to a superstore and you buy an item, it's a transaction. When you buy an item, that is a money that has been exchanged between the two counterparties. Transactional data is also a compliance activity. You buy an item in your grocery store and something wrong, so you take the bill and you go to the person and say, hey, look, I bought this. This is it's not of good quality. So he might return that item and give you a new item. So transactional data is also a compliance activity. And in business, every transaction hits the GL. So that means it is tied to the financial reporting as well. Whether you talk about GAAP or IFRS and all those things, it's part of the transactional data. So transactional data is where the data quality is really important. You can talk about 5 lakh customers. That's all okay. It's all theory. But what really matters is the 1,700 customers with whom you had transactions. The second thing is about the data quality stage. So often data goes through 4 levels or 4 stages in its life cycle. Data capture or origination, where the data is actually captured. The data integration, majority of the work in the industry is about integrating the data. Third one is data science, which is the process of deriving insights. And last one is decision science, taking those insights and making them and deriving the right decision. So in that process, when you talk about the data state, when it is originated or captured, often it is limited. It is primarily limited to operations and compliance, which is to run your business and to satisfy the needs of the regulators. But when it moves towards the data science world, the value goes up. Along with operations and compliance, you are also enhancing the data and trying to derive insights. So Forrester did a study, and they said that if you are focusing on data science activities, you can improve your growth possibilities by up to 3 times. That means almost 300%. So most of the times when you talk about data science, that's where the value for the businesses. So that's the reason why data science or data analytics is getting more and more popular, because capturing the data for operations and compliance is like straightforward. The real value is about how do you take those insights and convert them into quick decisions. And that's where data science comes into the picture. In other words, the higher you go across the data life cycle, from data capture to data science and ultimately to decision science, the more value you can get out of your data. So what's the solution for this, Prashanth? For operations and compliance, focus on your system of record, which could be your ERP, CRM, and all those things, and the first-party data. For analytics, along with system of record and the first-party data, focus on your system of insights, which could be your analytics system, which could be your data warehouses, and try to bring in zero-party data for second-party and third-party data. So with this, I put a quote in MIT's loan management review about what companies can do to get the data. So after this call, if you're interested, you can Google it and go and read my article here. So the last one, with those two topics discussed, let's talk about what you can do to realize data quality. So Mohan was talking about the DARS framework, which stands for 4 stages: define the problem, assess, realize, and sustain. So again, in the interest of time, I'll be quick on those 4 phases and give you some things so that you can take it to your work immediately on Monday, so that when you go to work on Monday, you can be much smarter. And they'll be wondering, hey, what happened to this person in this weekend? Where did she go? How did she get all this knowledge and skills? So I'll talk about a few skills which you can take it to your work right on Monday and be smarter at work. The first one is the define phase. All said and done, data quality is all about being proactive. How you can be proactive and improve your business. So I use this rule called 1-10-100 rule. It's not my rule; it was there before, but I took it for my project or for my book as well. So what does this mean? So if you are proactive, you will spend 1x the 1x cost, or if the problem is found before it reaches the customer, or it's remediated internally, you might be spending 10x, or if it is found by the customer, you will be spending 100x the money. So you have a choice, either to be proactive or reactive. If you are proactive and if you are smart, then you just spend 1x the amount. Or if you are lazy or are reactive, the customer will report the problem to you and you will be spending 100x the money. So you have a choice, either to be proactive or reactive. So use this 1-10-100 rule to justify the cost of data quality. The second one is the analyze phase, which is part of the DARS. So overall, when you look at data profiling or data assessment, you can look at all the metrics into 2 major measures or KPIs. One focused on the measure of centrality, which could be your mean, or it could be your median, whatever you want to call it, that one value which talks about the data point. Or you could focus on the measures of spread or variation, which could be part of standard deviation, standard error, outliers, Z-score, and all those things. So based on those 2 measures of data profiling, which is the measure of centrality and variation, you can look at all processes, because all said and done, data quality is tied to the business process into 4 major process states. The ideal state is basically you have the target, which is whatever you want to call it, or the mean, plus or minus 1 times the standard deviation. If your process is within this, your data quality levels are good. If it is plus or minus 3 times the standard deviation, we call it as a threshold state. And if it is plus or minus 6 times the standard deviation, you are a little bit in trouble. It's called the brink of chaos. And anything more than 6 times the standard deviation, it is completely messy. It is completely chaotic. And again, this is not my definition. This was done by a person called Donald Wheeler, and I took his work as part of the data quality stuff he has done, and I used it for my book. So just to give you an idea about where you are standing in terms of the data quality assessment. So there is a joke in data quality, which says that there is no point in preaching religion to a hungry man. So you want to know where you are standing in the data quality levels. Are you in the ideal state, or are you in a threshold, or you are a little bit bad, or it's completely chaotic, so that you can craft your data quality solutions appropriately and improve your business performance. So understanding the business levels or where you stand is very important, so that you can talk about solutions which are contextual in nature. The realize phase, which is the 3rd phase of the DARS framework. There's 10 solutions which I discussed in the book. Again, in the interest of time, I'll talk about 4 major ones. The first one is master data management. Most of you might have heard about MDM solutions. Whenever I go to my clients and when I talk about data quality, they think that data quality is tied to MDM. True, but that's a small part of it. The MDM, when you talk about MDM, it's typically for operations and compliance. Analytics, MDM might not be the great solution. Like, it is pretty much like using the right tools for the right purpose. So for instance, if you have an apple, you can cut an apple with a hammer or a knife. But which is a better tool? Knife. So you have to use the tool for the right purpose. A hammer might also do the job, but it's not the right tool. A knife is a better tool to cut an apple than a hammer. So use MDM for if you are looking at improving the data quality when it comes to operations and compliance. Data integration. Majority of the data quality issues happen along with the manual data entry because of data integration. And when you look at different data integration solutions, whether you talk about RPA or ETL or data virtualization or EAI or any of those solutions, basically the selection of those data integration solutions depend on three major things. Whether you want to pull or push data, the amount of data which is there, number two, the data volume, and lastly, the sequence of orchestration or the sequence of transpose, and orchestration. So any of those data integration solution, ETL or data virtualization or RPA or any of those things depends on these three major factors. So leverage those things based on your business needs and come up with the right data integration solution. Data cleansing, or we call it also as data wrangling in the IT world, which is all about cleansing and making sure that the right data is available so that the data scientists can get the data in the right way and run their data science model. It could also include feature engineering, which is to create more attributes from the existing data. And lastly, about semantic layer. So when you talk about analytics, semantic layer can play a big role. So most of the tools, whether you talk about BobJ or Click or Power BI or Tableau, have got the semantic layer capabilities. So you can use multiple definitions which you have in your company and align it to one common definition. For instance, when I go to large corporations like FedEx and McDonald's, when I talk to those companies, they have multiple definitions because of the organization silos which are there. So for instance, marketing might call a business entity as a prospect, sales might call the same business entity as a client, whereas finance might call the same business entity as a customer. So you have the same business entity called by three different names: prospect, client, and customer, but actually they are the same. So if you're doing analytics on lead to cash, which is or order to cash, one of the processes, so it becomes very difficult when those same entities are called in three different ways. How do you map this? So this is where semantic layer comes into the picture. Of course, there are so many tools, but you also have to know how to use the tools. So that's what I talked about, the knife and the hammer example. And this is one more picture where you say that on the ladders. So it all depends on how you use the resources here. So in my experience, what I have seen is there is no constraints of solutions these days. Whatever Google has got, SAP has got. Whatever SAP has, Microsoft has. So there's no constraint for solutions for companies. It's all about using the right tools for the right purpose. And the last phase in DARS is about sustain. It's about governing. It doesn't have to be bureaucratic. It's not like one size fits all. You have to cater it to a particular organization. It depends on your data and insight strategies. Some companies are focused more on data. Some companies are focused more on insights. For instance, if you look at oil and gas companies, they are pretty much regulation centric, or even healthcare. So they need more data so that when regulators come to them, they can produce it. It doesn't mean that they're not concerned about insights. But on the other hand, the retail, media, and CPG companies are focused more on insights. So your data governance should tailor to what your industry is, what your company is, rather than coming up with one standard approach. And in data governance, it's not about policing. Many places I go, people talk about, data governance is about bureaucracy, it's about control, it's about policing, it's all those things, which is true. But the fundamental thing about data governance is it's about managing data. It's data value comes before than data governance. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. So this is my book, which Mohan was talking about, which is on data quality. For those of you who are wondering who this gentleman is and why did Prashanth put this person's picture, we would have expected him to put Rajnikant's picture or Tom Cruise holding the book. But who is this picture? If you're wondering who this gentleman is, he came up with this 3 V's of big data, which stands for volume, velocity, and variety. His name is Doug Laney. So he defined the 3 V's of big data in 1998, which is kind of very popular now. So he is holding my book, and there are a couple of feedbacks from the Best Buy and from Cigna people, and there's many more in the book itself, and there's a couple of them in Amazon. So you can go and have a look at it. And for those of you who attended my talk, here is my discount code for my 2 previous books. It's data for business performance and analytics best practices. Analytics best practices was ranked the #1 analytics book of all time by Book Authority last year. So if you are interested, you can go to my publisher's website, which is techniquespub.com, and buy it. Or else, if you want to make the world's second richest man, get the #1 spot, you can go to the website which starts with A and buy it there. And again, now it's a time to turn on your cell phone and take this picture. If you want, so that you can apply this discount code and get the PDF version of this book. I'll just pause for 5 seconds for you to take the screenshot or the picture of this slide. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. One last slide, key summary or takeaways. So try to leverage the data flywheel. Don't restrict yourself to the data that is there inside your company, which is often the first-party data. See whether you can look at the zero-party data, second-party data, third-party, which often many companies ignore that. They talk mostly the first-party data and go straight to the third-party data, which is to buy the data from external companies, which is okay. But at the same time, there are many cost-effective ways of getting other types of data, because you already have a relationship with your vendors, with your agents, with your distributors, and all those entities. Data quality is very contextual. You can come up with those 3 definitions, which gives you at a high level, but all said and done, data quality is dependent on the time, location, and the purpose which you have in your organization. The default state is data liability. So tomorrow, if somebody says data is oil or data is blood and oxygen, which is good, but the default state is try to be a little bit pessimistic when it comes to data quality, and accept that data is a business asset only if you know how to use it. That's not just for data. Any asset which you have can be a liability or an asset. So I did my MBA from Kellogg in Northwestern University. So when I talk to a couple of my classmates today, some people say that, oh, this was a great program from MBA. But at the same time, some people say that, oh, I didn't find much utility with this MBA program. So it all depends on how you use it. You must have seen in your with your classmates as well. Some people have done might have done your whatever, your engineering or MBA. Some people are doing very well. Some people are struggling. So you have an asset. It all depends on how you use it. Just keeping that asset doesn't make it a very valuable, or keeping that resource doesn't make it a very valuable business asset. Transactional data is what really matters when it comes to data quality and business performance. And all said and done, it's about people. So you can talk about all the regression models, data quality, and everything, but the real change, real impact which you can get from data management is through people. It's about managing your process, data systems, and again, people. If people are not embarking on this change, you are not going very far with getting results from data analytics. So again, thank you very much for your time. And I worked in quite a few companies. And one of the best places I worked, or the place which had biggest impact in my career, was GE. And when I was in GE, Jack Welch was the CEO. And this quote from him is appropriate for our discussion or this presentation, which is to, you can have the insights, but translating the insights into action is the ultimate competitive advantage companies can get. So this is my email ID, and I'm very active in LinkedIn. So please connect with me. I'd be honored and glad to have you in my professional network. And so I'll be sharing many things in LinkedIn about data and analytics, all for free. I love free stuff. So you can also get some things for free by connecting with me in LinkedIn and being in touch with me. So I'm done with my presentation. So I'll pause for questions or comments.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there are a few questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Akila.
I'll just post it here, sir.
Yeah.
1 minute. In data wrangling, can you give an example of creating an attribute that you spoke about?
Sure. Okay. So but in data wrangling has got a bunch of different techniques which you can use. And to what question that was asked, feature engineering about how to create new attributes. So let's take a simple example of, or I'll take a real example where I work for a ski resort in British Columbia. British Columbia is one of the neighboring states of Alberta, where I live. So this lady, she came for my training, and she was the operations manager for this resort. And she says, Prashanth, I love what you're talking about, creating new attributes from existing data. That means practically creating nothing, creating new things out of vacuum. How do you do this? So use your kind of the existing data, which is kind of the raw material, plus a little bit of your common sense and make it happen. So the problem she had was they wanted to introduce a new campaign for wealthy people who are coming for skiing. So how do you identify wealthy people and send a kind of a personalized messages to those people? So you can't go and ask how much money you make. That doesn't work well. So I said the hypothesis which we have is people who are coming for your resort from international locations, they are kind of rich. Okay, that makes sense. But you see, there are many people who are coming to this resort in British Columbia from Germany, and most of those people are students. And often students don't have much money, so they want to have fun, but they typically don't want to spend a lot of money. So you can't just go with one factor, which is international travelers. So along with international travelers, we said let's look at another attribute, which is your designation. Say, for instance, a person with the title vice president comes from Japan, because they get a lot of travelers from Europe and Japan, comes from Japan. There's a good chance that he is going to, he's rich. And we look at one more attribute, which is called as a net promoter score. Because higher this net promoter score from his previous experiences, there is a good chance that he will come to your resort once again. So what we did was we looked at three main attributes from the existing data, which is your address, which is your designation, and the third one, which is the feedback which you gave when you left the resort. So we took those three attributes and created a new attribute, which is called as the income category. And we classified those income category into three major things: high, medium, and low. And there were approximately 80,000 records in their database. And from there, we narrowed it down to about 6,000. And we sent personalized campaigns, or this company sent personalized campaigns to those 6,000 people. And there was a high conversion rate. Within 2 years, 4,000 of them came back to their resorts for this high income category product, which was tailored for exclusivity, basically. So this is one example which we use where we talk feature engineering and created new attributes out of the existing data. So sometimes when I go to and talk to clients, they say, oh, we don't have data. They start whining and they started complaining and all those things. But I ask them, have you thought about feature engineering? Have you used a little bit of your leadership? Have you used a little bit of your common sense and created new attributes?
Thank you, sir. Excellent example. Next question. Can you describe more about what you mean by zero-party data and how it is different from other categories?
Okay. So as I said earlier, zero-party data is the data which you don't have about your counterparties, which could be your customers or vendors or agents or distributors or whoever it is, where you don't have a relationship with them. So the relationship or the transactions which you have with those entities, it's not hitting your GL yet. So that kind of data is called as a zero-party data. Like the prospect data, for instance. So you might be getting a lot of messages saying that I'm pretty sure if you're a little bit bored and depressed in life, you can just go to your spam folders and you see a lot of this junk mail saying that you want this 1 crore loan for this interest and all those things. So where are they getting that information from? It's all about the zero-party data, which they believe that you could be a potential customer. So that's who are our potential customer or vendor and all this stuff. So, but there is other data as well which companies are not leveraging, which is not the first party. Of course, they are all talking about the first party data, which is the data internal to the company, but the data about you, which your partners are having, your vendors are having. Like you are giving a contract, for example, you look at the flyover that has been built. The government of India gives this contract to what is that, NH, National Highway Authority in India, gives this contract to L&T to build the flyover. So the data which L&T uses to build the flyover is practically your data as well, because it's a contract which the National Highway Authority of India has given to L&T to build the flyover. So you can take those data. Oh, this is the data which L&T has given. This is the data which one more construction company has given. So let's compare the cost performance of L&T versus this. But in many cases, because of data integration and other regulatory aspects, most of the procurement organizations are not pushing hard on this companies to get the data. So that would be the second party data. The last one is the third party data, which is the data which you can easily buy, like ZoomInfo, for instance. It's a very popular thing, especially in North America, where for the marketing team, say I want to sell my products to Walmart, for instance. And whom do I contact in Walmart? What is their phone number? What is their email addresses? All this information, I can get it if I have a product from ZoomInfo. It could be the weather data. It could be the data with what Amazon and Google give, like even including Alexa and Google Home, for instance. You ask a question to Google and about vacations, and tomorrow you see a lot of Facebook feeds about hotels and vacations in Hawaii. So all those data are about data products. So yeah. Overall, zero-party data is about potential counterparties. First-party data is about your data. Second-party data is the data about your counterparties where you already have a relationship. And third-party data especially is very useful for analytics.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Please explain with example how data, analytics, AI, and business performance are linked. Sir?
Yeah. I'm just organizing my thoughts about
Okay,
how to. But today, at a high level, data and AI are kind of interlinked. So there is no data without AI and no AI without data. So they feed into each other. So you collect data and you feed into your AI systems and then back into and you get more data. Like Chat GPT is a common thing. How does it work? Because there's already a lot of data that has been captured, and then that's what it gives all those recommendations. The business performance, the other part which I discussed is all about using data to get business results. Let me give you an example about that weather data case which I spoke about a few slides earlier. So it was actually a real case where we had this convenience store or a gas station network in Canada, US, and Caribbean. So they had about 900 gas stations in those three geographies. And one of the hypotheses they had was weather makes a big difference in people coming for car washes. So I said, okay, what's their hypothesis? If there is a sunny day today, yesterday it snowed and today it's a sunny day, so there is a good chance that people will come for car washes today. Okay, so what we do is we'll identify the weather data and we will send a $1 discount coupon to all those people in their network to come and get a car wash. So what we did was we looked at of course, people had downloaded the app on their phone for this gas station network, and then we use the weather data. Or today it snowed, tomorrow there's going to be a sunny day. So we send a notification at the end of the day, or the day it snowed. Tomorrow is going to be a bright day, and here is a $1 coupon which you have. Come to our gas station and get your car wash done. So this resulted in increased business performance or bottom line, where we use data to make more money for the company. So this is one example which I have. I can talk many more, but in the interest of time, I'll just keep it to one.
Thank you, sir. What is the scope of AI in food industry scenario for maintaining quality data?
Akila, can you say it again? I got distracted.
What is the scope of AI in food industry scenario for maintaining quality data?
I'm not a food industry expert, but overall, I'll keep it at a high level. So food industry is very much centric on regulations. Of course, you can talk about other aspects as well, insights. So if you want to maintain quality data, you can use all those AI techniques and tools to improve the regulatory aspects and again get more results. But I also saw one question coming from Usman about where do you see data analytics in 5 years? I think that's a most that's a good question. So the future is going to be on data analytics. Again, in my view, I might be biased here, but the future is going to be data analytics. And it's many people have said this. Because I'll tell you a simple example, not just for the sake of saying this. Every profession is a data profession, is a data-centric profession. A doctor or a surgeon gives prescription based on the data from the lab reports he has got. Your performance appraisal in your company is based on data, how you perform. So an accountant looks at the data and makes a decision. A school teacher looks at the data. Of course, a data scientist looks at the data. So every profession these days is data-centric. So they say that by 2025, the amount of data in a company is going to double every 8 hours. So companies are capturing tremendous amount of data these days. Even in politics, for example, BJP, for instance, they said that they came to power in 2014 because depends on how they used data, for example. The same with the Republican Party and Donald Trump. So every company, every entity, whether it's politics or sports or entertainment or business, everybody is using data analytics. You can't ignore it. Just like, in my view, it's as good as the communication skills. So it's going to be default skills which you need at work. So when you join a company, say, for example, you quit, so you want to join Accenture, for instance. So when you join Accenture, nobody will say that, oh, you need to be a great communicator. It's given that when you join Accenture, that's the expectation. So in the next few years, it's expected that you need to have some basic data skills. It's going to be as fundamental as your communication, negotiation, working with people, all those things. It's going to be a basic skill going forward.
Thank you, sir. Next question. What are the research directions in data visualization? Shall I repeat the question, sir?
Yeah, no, I got it. So I'm just thinking, probably, I'm not sure. I might be wrong here. Again, I might be wrong. There's a fundamental thing in business which says garbage in is garbage out. I'm not sure. Data visualization, there is a lot of interesting questions which you can ask on data visualization. Stephen Few has done a lot of work on data visualization. You can read his work. But the fundamental thing, I think, or the main problem in data analytics is, in my view, is around data integration and data science. So and decision science as well. I think most of the problems are around that. I'm not saying that there's no problems in the data visualization, but I think I will abstract this question to a higher level. I think most of the challenges which we have in the industry are mostly on data integration, data science, and decision science. The digitization per se is kind of standard these days. So that problem is pretty much solved. Or there's no much meat in there, but there is kind of a meatier problems in integration, data science, and decision science. To whoever asked that question, I would abstract it or go to a little bit of a higher level on these three areas.
Thank you, sir. Next question. How the chat GPT can be used in the academic libraries for better library services?
And again, there's a lot of controversies and on using ChatGPT for academic reasons. But in my view, given that I teach at IE as well in Madrid, in my view, the power of ChatGPT or using ChatGPT for your work is dependent on asking good questions. If you don't have the ability to ask good questions, then you'll not be able to use ChatGPT very well. So asking questions is going to be very important. So when I started my PhD, of course, I took a very long time. I took almost 14 years to do my PhD. in the first year, my guide said that the difference between PhD and your master's or bachelor's degree or whatever it is fundamentally one thing. It's about asking questions. Your PhD is all about asking questions, whereas your master's program or your bachelor's degree is all about giving answers. So you need to know how to ask good, powerful questions. And that's coming to ChatGPT now. So I think overall the workforce levels would be enhanced, going up to the PhD level. How good you are in asking questions. So if you know how to ask the right questions, ChatGPT is your great friend. Or if you don't know how to ask the right question, then anybody can use ChatGPT, and there's no differentiator. So,
Thank
Mohan,
you, sir.
Mohan, you are muted. You are muted.
Okay. I think we can ask the person to attend the webinar on 16th. Professor Brady is going to talk about the impact of ChatGPT for librarians and academics. So obviously, he will have something different. And of course, what Dr. Prashanth said is very, very much true. It is a prompt engineering which makes ChatGPT a better tool. How you prompt your questions, that is going to be
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and just I have one question, Dr. Prashanth, is about ethical considerations in data. So now ethics is become a major issue in every business. So how the data and ethics, they go together.
So yeah, it's a great question, Mohan. It's a big problem, especially in the world of AI, where most of the decisions, especially in financial services, insurance, all of those things, it's a big problem. Of course, I'm not saying other industries are not concerned about it, but the ethics is a big problem. In my book, I've dedicated one chapter just on data ethics, which is on privacy, to talk about how to manage privacy well, which is on stakeholder management, so that you use the right data in the right way. In the book, I also talk about the half-life of data, about what is the utility the data has got to make the right decisions, how far you have to go and collect the data for your analytics. And again, the security aspects of it, so that the right people can use the data in the right way. So one of the challenges which we have in analytics is when the data is getting integrated or moved from system A to system B, the compliance to the metadata model is lost, and that can potentially affect ethics as well. So it's a very much an evolving subject and an interesting topic, and so that's where the most of the big techs are concerned about the role of data ethics and how they are using them for their growth and business. Okay, in the interest of time, again, I just went over by 9 minutes. I can take one last question, Akila, and others can. If you have any questions, please connect me in LinkedIn or drop me a note.
Any more questions from the participants? You can just unmute yourself and you can ask.
Dr. Aguila, Shweta has raised a question. I think she has raised the hand. I'm not sure whether. Shweta, would you like to ask any questions?
Yeah, she has to unmute.
Shweta, please unmute yourself. You are still muted. Or you could type your question in the chat box.
Okay,
you're not hearing.
Okay. Now I request our chairperson of CSI Chennai chapter, Mr. TV Kamalakkannan sir, to propose the vote of thanks.
Hello, good evening all. It was, I would say, a riveting performance, Dr. Prashanth. I think I have seen people usually leaving, towards the end after like 45 minutes or 1 hour. Today I could see the attendance, absolutely stable. Okay. They wanted to hear you right up to the last moment. So thank you very much, Dr. Prashanth, for joining us today. And I know you had to wake up early. It's pretty early in the morning there in Canada. So thank you very much for taking time to join us. And today, of course, you covered the what do you call breadth and depth of data quality. And I also see that you keep publishing books every 3 years, 17, 20, and 23. That also shows how much you are committed to data quality. It's not just the what do you call preaching, but it's also the practice and also keeping up to date with the industry, right? You started with business performance. I mean, people talked about data. I think that is when people thought data is a new oil. Okay, then we said, hey guys, that data is not important. You need to do analytics. You better do that. Then it all finally came to, like you said, I mean, you debunked the myth. Hey, data is not the new oil. I mean, it could be a liability. So I think your latest book talks about all that. And I mean, unless the data is really, really valuable, or at least it is validated, it can become a huge liability. I think you covered that very well with beautiful examples, right? So thank you very much for really covering all the aspects. You also mentioned that we need to be proactive. It cannot be a what do you call afterthought. Hey, we got a lot of data now. Let's try to analyze. I mean, it's not going to work. So you need to really work in advance, plan in advance as to what should be the deliverables or outcomes. Accordingly, design your data strategy. And you talked about the dimensions, right? 12 dimensions. And then you talked about accuracy and correctness. You differentiated. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. There were questions on degrades. Hey, what do you mean by degrade? Data quality degrade. So very nicely explained. And the most interesting part for me was debunking data myths. Okay, all the three. I was thinking it was so important. You said, hey, no, unless your data is really foolproof, you cannot. And you said it can never be 100% perfect. Somebody said perfection is not of this world. Okay, so it doesn't have to be. So, and you talked about DORS framework, and and finally your responses to the questions were absolutely to the point. I mean, so we really, really enjoyed. I think it was one of the most insightful webinars we have had, especially on such a what do you call? People think that data quality is a small topic, or I mean, it's okay. It's sort of probably afterthought, but you beautifully covered the entire aspects of data quality. And thank you very much. We have really, really had a wonderful session. And I'm sure many of the people who joined here will connect with you on LinkedIn. And let us also hope that we will be connecting with each other from CSI and IEEE aspects. So thank you very much, Dr. Prashanth, for joining us. And I would like to thank IEEE Computer Science section and also ACM organizations for joining us today in hosting this seminar. And of course, all the participants who stayed back till the end. So thank you all very much for joining. Once again, thanks, Dr. Prashanth.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prashanth. Have a good day.
Okay. Same to you, sir. Bye-bye.